Hello guys, welcome back to another video. As always, I am so excited to have you guys here. Please excuse my voice. I did lose my voice earlier this week, but we are just moving right along. I'm excited for today's video. It's another what I eat in a week. I know that you guys love these, and thank you for all the lovely comments on my last video letting me know that my meals weren't repetitive and boring. But before we get into the video, I do have a very exciting announcement. If you guys are on my email list or you follow me on Instagram, you would have already heard about this, but I am launching a guide for you guys. I always get asked on here if I have a guide or a resource that kind of outlines all of the basic principles that I talk about on this channel, and now I can say that I do. So this guide covers the basics when it comes to your health. You guys know I'm very passionate about making sure that we're covering the basics when it comes to our health, and I also recognize that the internet can be a very overwhelming place when it comes to health information, and it can make figuring out where to start very difficult. So that is really why I created this guide. The guide does have an educational component to it, but there's also journal prompts and meal prep ideas. So there's lots of ways that you can apply the guide to your life, because if we just focus on education without application, we're never gonna see any change, right? I'm super excited. Like I said, it covers the basics. So we talk about sleep and circadian rhythm, stress management, exercise, and nutrition. When we talk about nutrition, we go into macronutrients, micronutrients, the importance of protein and fiber, and how to make sure that you're getting enough protein and fiber, and how to track your protein and fiber. Like I said, there's also a meal prep component. The meal prep component is very much structured like how I structure my meals on this channel. So you guys know I like to keep pre-prep carbohydrates on hand, pre-prepped protein, a few sauces, prepped veggies, things like that. So that is really how the meal prep component of the guide is set up. I will say my peanut sauce recipe is in there, and my recipe for my tofu is in there as well. And then I also touch on obstacles when it comes to your health, the importance of mindset and self-image, because I do really think that mindset matters when it comes to your health. So if you guys are watching this when this video comes out, so either Saturday or Sunday, I will be launching the guide at the start of this coming week. So if you guys want to get on the list to be the first to know when the guide is available, you can check the description box below and you can get on the list. I would definitely recommend getting on the list because you will get a discount code with that. If you guys are watching this video at a later date and you still want to get the guide, I'll replace the link down below with a link where you can go directly and purchase the guide. So with that being said, let's just get into the video. Alright guys, I apologize, but you are just going to have to deal with the raspy voice for the entire video. If you watched my last vlog, you know that this has been my go-to breakfast lately. This is a rye-seeded sourdough bread that I get from a local bakery by my house, and then I always top it off with some avocado that I mix with some pressed cottage cheese, and I top it off with some smoked salmon. I also had some blueberries on hand, so I washed those and had some blueberries on the side. Honestly, this breakfast is so good. There's lots of fiber from the blueberries, the whole grain bread, and the avocado, and then you have lots of protein from the cottage cheese. You also get some protein in the salmon and some healthy omega-3 fatty acids, and lots of micronutrients as well. So like I said at the start of the video, I love to keep different elements of my meals prepped on hand, and something that I've been loving lately is just having a bunch of sauteed mushrooms on hand. They're really easy to throw into omelets or scrambles, and then you don't have to worry about cooking the mushrooms down every time. You can just throw them in right at the end. And I'll usually just get a bunch of different types of mushrooms. So here I think I use shiitake, cremini, and white mushrooms. That way you just get a little bit more variety. Sometimes I'll also throw in a shallot or an onion. And lately I've been obsessed with making breakfast burritos with these siete tortillas. I'm still figuring out how to fully wrap these tortillas. sometimes they fall apart on me and I've stopped trying to tuck in the ends because I just find they break every time. I heard that if you slightly warm it up, it helps, but then sometimes I find that I warm it up too much and then it starts to fall apart. So any tips would be greatly appreciated. So I just had my breakfast burrito with mushrooms and eggs. I had some avocado on the side for just some extra healthy fats and fiber. And that is the lunch that I've been having basically on repeat every day. So moving on to dinner, I'm making it my tofu. Like I said, I love keeping prepped protein sources on hand. It just makes for really easy meals throughout the week. And this baked tofu is one of my favorites. The recipe for this is in my guide. So if you guys want the recipe, you can get it in the guide. I love using this in spring rolls, but you can also put it in noodle stir fries or any sort of bowls. You could even slice it really thin and put it into sandwiches. You guys have seen me make these spring rolls so many times, and I had some peanut sauce left over from the weekend, so I just had it with that. That was my dinner on Monday. So you guys know that I've been on a little bit of a chia pudding kick. So I wanted to see if I could make one with this pressed cottage cheese. I will put my best estimates for the ingredients that I used in the description box below, but I definitely kind of added more liquid as I went just to get the right texture. That's really how all my cooking goes. It's just one giant experiment. It was basically, I think, cottage cheese. I used some cashew milk. I sweetened it with maple syrup, added some cinnamon, salt, and then I've been keeping the chia seeds whole. Sometimes I like to blend them if I want to smoother chia seed pudding, but lately I've been keeping it whole. And then I just set that in the fridge and let it set up overnight. And then my boyfriend's always asking me why I keep almost empty nut and seed butters in the fridge. And this is the exact reason. I love taking chia seed pudding in an almost empty nut butter container, and then you get a little bit in every bite. So here I had a almost empty tahini jar. I added my chia seed pudding. I topped it off with some blueberries. It was kind of like a blueberry sesame cheesecake flavor. And I just took that with me to work with my coffee. So on Tuesday, I had basically the exact same lunch that I had the day before. Like I said, when I find a meal that I like and I can make really easily, I just tend to have it on repeat. This time I did add some salsa on the side. The week before this, I had it with some leftover pesto, and that was really, really good. So either salsa or pesto would make a great addition to the breakfast burrito. And then in the late afternoon, early evening, my friend invited me to go down to the docks in the West End to go to the driving range. I have not golfed since I was about 12 or 13 years old, so I was definitely out of practice, but it was super fun. But I didn't get home till pretty late, so I just made some spring rolls for dinner. I love these because when you have everything on hand, you can throw them together in 5 minutes. And then of course I had some dates and almond butter for dessert. On Wednesday, I had the other half of the chia seed pudding that I prepped, and this time I had it with cherries. I mentioned this a few videos back. I love having cherries in the summer. I feel like they're only ripe for a few months of the year, and they're so good. And this is honestly such a fiber-packed breakfast. Between the chia seeds and the cherries, I topped it off with almond butter and hemp seeds. You have so many healthy fats, lots of protein from the cottage cheese, lots of micronutrients from the cherries. Cherries are super high in antioxidants, so overall just a powerhouse breakfast. Moving on to lunch, you guys have seen me make this meal so many times, but I'm just making my favorite salad. Here, I think I had a spring mix, avocado. I think I was gonna add sweet potatoes, but I didn't have any prepped. I also added some sauerkraut for some probiotics, and then for a dressing, I usually just will sprinkle it with some parsley, salt, pepper, balsamic vinegar, and olive oil. I'll mix that up, and then I'll just have it with whatever protein I have on hand. You can chop up the tofu that I made the day earlier, throw that in the salad. Here, I'm just having it with some chicken, and the recipe for how I make my chicken thighs is also in the guide. And then since I didn't have any carbs in the salad, I just had more of the cherries on the side. One thing about living alone is if you buy a giant bag of cherries, you have to eat them all yourself. And then for dinner, it was my brother's birthday, so he actually got to pick where we went out for dinner. He chose Sunny's Chinese in Kensington Market. I really liked it. I thought the food was really good. We basically got a bunch of entrees and shared them. My parents are both vegan, so we also got some vegan entrees, some really delicious tofu dishes. But for me, the highlight was definitely the dessert. We had this amazing French toast that came with this black sesame filling. It was so good and just really nice to spend time with family.
So long silent movies, the quiet dances on the screen. So long to burning slowly, smelling sweat and kerosene. And all the actors on the stage are rolling cigarettes and whispering so low. Call my parents.
And then on Thursday, I decided to meal prep some of my sweet potatoes. You guys know I love keeping prepped sweet potatoes on hand. When you cook and cool any sort of starch like a sweet potato, it turns into a resistant starch, and resistant starches are great for gut health. They basically feed the beneficial bacteria in your gut. It's also great for blood sugar control, and the full recipe for how I make my sweet potatoes is, surprise, surprise, in the guide as well. And I love just keeping these on hand. They go great with eggs in the morning. You can chop them up, throw them in salads, use them as the carbohydrate source in bowls. Just a very versatile thing to keep on hand. Sometimes if I'm really in a pinch for time, I'll just bake up entire sweet potatoes. I won't even bother cutting them up and seasoning them. Moving on to lunch, I wanted to make something really quick, so I just had another one of my breakfast burritos. Unfortunately, this one did fall apart a little bit more. It turned into more of a breakfast panini. That was my lunch, and then I headed out to work in the afternoon. And then for dinner, I made one of my favorite meals when I just don't really feel like cooking too much. I always have frozen broccoli on hand in my freezer for when I just want a quick meal. I cook it up the same way. I basically put it in the oven for a while, let it defrost, let some of the water evaporate, and then I'll season it with avocado oil, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and then I just cooked up some more of my chicken thighs. I added some of the sweet potatoes that I cooked up earlier in the day, and then of course I topped it off with some tahini as well.
Cause baby, like, ooh, it's all another flower lay. The sun goes around the state. Can't wait for the long day. Cause baby, like, ooh.
letting you guys know on Fridays, my goal is really just to clear out my fridge. I just boiled some eggs. I always boil my eggs for 8 minutes, then put them into an ice bath to cool them down. I peeled those and took them with the leftover mushrooms and some of the sweet potatoes, and I took that with me to work. I also packed some berries as well. On Fridays, I'm in the clinic the full day, but I do get an hour for lunch, and I live super close to my clinic, so I've been trying to come home for lunch every day on Fridays. It gives me a nice break, gets me outside, make sure I get for my midday walk. Plus, my boyfriend usually works from my apartment on Fridays, so I get to see him for a little bit and enjoy my lunch. For lunch, I just basically made my favorite salad. So I had a bunch of greens. I chopped up some of the leftover chicken from the night before. I added in some of the sweet potatoes, some sauerkraut, and then I just seasoned it with salt, pepper, parsley, balsamic vinegar, and olive oil. Ate that and then headed back to work for the afternoon.
It's all another flower lane. The sun goes around the state. Can't wait for the long day.
And then after work, I stopped at Fresh on my way home. It has happy hour from 3 to 6 p.m. So you can get $5 fresh juices. I picked up a green juice for my boyfriend and I grabbed a carrot juice. It's my favorite juice from there. And then we actually drove out to Oakville that evening. We were heading to Buffalo for the weekend and it's just easier to leave from Oakville. And that's where my boyfriend lives. So we took advantage of the barbecue. We barbecued up some burgers. I also found this balsamic dressing at Whole Foods and it had pretty good ingredients, so I made us a salad. I made the little sweet potato burger buns that I've made in a previous video. This is my favorite way to eat burgers, and I had that with some avocado mayo, and the salad on the side, and that was my dinner. It was super delicious. I have to make these more. They're so good. And then the weekend, like I said, we were out in Buffalo, so I never really film on the weekend, but I like to include some clips. My boyfriend was actually in a powerlifting competition, so while he was warming up, I went out and grabbed a breakfast sandwich. I came back to watch him deadlift 666 pounds, and then we drove back all the way to Toronto. We got sushi to celebrate his powerlifting meet, and then on Sunday we just made our normal brunch. But that does bring us to the end of the video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got some meal ideas, some inspiration, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!